Hello, well May really is the ideal time if you haven't already done it to sow late season annuals. They're really good ways of getting colour into containers and borders and really inexpensive as well. So before I show you the seeds, I just want to say that actually you can sow seeds in almost anything. So I have here an old egg box that I've sown some English marigolds into, and once they've got their true leaves, so that's the leaf which is general to the plant, then I can prick those out and plant them on into another container to grow on or into the border. If you go to the garden centre, you'll find there are lots of really useful kits. There's this kind of kit which has the compost in little pods, completely watertight, so you put water in there, put the lid on, let the seeds germinate and grow on in those containers. I mean, that's perfect for a windowsill, so if you've got the tiniest of space, that really works. And if you've got space, then a traditional seed tray is also really good. I tend to use these wooden ones because they're ever so handy. And you can divide that by 2, by 3, or just 1, depending on what you're growing in there. So those are my seed box choices. You can also sow directly into small pots. I mean, things like courgettes, really good in there. And there are lots of seed to choose from. So what I tend to do is just buy the seeds I love. So I've got some zinnia from Johnson's, some of Jekka McVicker's herbs, and some Sarah Raven there. And I've also got some seeds that I collected up myself and overwintered. So the first thing to do, I'm going to use a box, is to fill that up with a good quality compost. Now, please don't be tempted to use peat. There are lots of good substitutes and they don't destroy habitat. So here I've got an organic peat-free compost, which I've filled my tray roughly to the top with. And once that's full, what you can either do is press down with your hands to get it semi-firm, or use a piece of sturdy cardboard or a piece of board like I've got here, and press that down, not too hard, but just press that down to give you a nice level surface. Now, if you're going to divide the seed tray in two, what you can do, just get some, is use a label and just jimmy it in between the compost. So there you can see now that I've got 2 spaces. So what I'm going to be sowing in here are my Sarah Raven zinnia and my Johnson zinnia, so that they're the same seed coming up, so I know that they're actually the seeds and not anything else. Now, some seed packets, when you open them, have the actual seed in a little container inside. Some don't, so be really careful how you open that, because if you haven't got that inside and you rip it open, the seeds are going to be on the floor, in the garden, in the carpet, in the rug, who knows, but they're not going to be in that packet, so just be a little bit careful when that opens. And then once you've got the seeds, just have a look as to how big they're likely to be. Now, these seeds are relatively large, so I've taken them all out of that container, and all I'm going to do is sprinkle them, a bit like milling pepper over a salad really, sprinkle them on the surface of the compost. I'll do the other side as well. So if you don't, you can also sprinkle like so till you've got them all out. Try and get that as even as possible. Now, you're not really going to be able to see the seeds, I'm afraid, but try and get it as even as possible across the compost. And the golden rule now is to cover that with the same depth as the depth of the seed. So if it's a pumpkin seed and it's quite thin, then it's a thin layer of soil. And if it's something like a broad bean that's quite thick, it needs the same volume of soil on top. And so basically, once I've done that, I get some compost and I just very, very lightly sprinkle that on until the seeds are covered. Now, these seeds are relatively large, so I can see that they're covered. But if I were using a smaller seed, let's say Nicotiana or poppies or something that were a little bit fine, I might want to use perlite, which you can get at the garden centre or searching online, instead of the compost to cover the top. Now, I'm going to label both of those. I've pre-written my labels. Just check. That's that and that. Make sure they're in firmly. And then basically, my top tip here is do not water this with the watering can over the top, because the seeds will all wash away. Stand that in a nice pan of water, let the water soak up through it, and do that for watering up until the point of germination, when you know the seeds are anchored into the compost. And germination should take at this time of year anything between 7 to 14 days. Once they've grown on, you'll be able to pop them out, and as long as you keep deadheading, then you're going to find that they'll be in flower all the way through until September. So hopefully you'll enjoy a nice summer full of flowers, And if you want other advice, then check the Chesterton's link and look at all of my gardening hints and tips throughout the year.